There is a powerful transformation that happens when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop broadcasting every move, every win, every plan. Silence is not absence, it's presence. A deeper form of awareness, a commitment to something greater. When you focus on yourself, your brain begins to rewire. You activate the very systems that govern discipline, clarity, and emotional strength. The world may never see the effort you put in at 5 a.m., the times you chose study over distraction, the battles you fought in silence. But your brain sees it. Your body responds. Your identity transforms. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. That constant urge to share your progress, your goals, it's a trick of the mind, a dopamine trap. It feels good in the moment, but it slows your momentum. The real reward comes from progress, not praise. Every time you focus on yourself, your health, your mindset, your purpose, you're building something that no one can take away from you, because no one can fake inner peace. No one can replicate self-respect. Silence gives you space to think, to observe, to sharpen your vision without interruption. The more you talk, the more you dilute your energy. But when you stay silent, you preserve it, you channel it. People won't understand your silence, and that's okay. It's not for them to understand, it's for you to use. Because every quiet day you spend building yourself will echo louder than any speech you could give. So take the attention off the noise and put it on the work, not for the world, not for validation, but for the person you're becoming. Privately, powerfully, patiently. Stay silent, stay focused, and let your results speak the loudest. Dopamine is one of the most misunderstood yet most powerful forces driving human behavior. At its core, dopamine is not about pleasure. It's about anticipation, motivation, and progress. Many people mistakenly believe that dopamine is released when we achieve success or receive praise. But neuroscience shows us something deeper. Dopamine is most powerfully triggered not by the achievement itself, but by the pursuit of it, by the small steps, by the forward motion. That's why focusing on yourself and staying silent can be one of the most potent ways to tap into the brain's motivational engine. When you remove the distractions of external validation, like praise, social attention, you allow your brain to build an internal reward system, one that is not dependent on what others see or say, but on what you do. Let's break this down. Imagine you are working on a goal. Maybe it's building a skill, getting stronger, starting a business, or studying something difficult. Every time you make progress, no matter how small, your brain releases a little hit of dopamine. That release says, you're on the right track, keep going. The key insight here is that the act of progressing, not talking about it, not sharing it, not being praised for it, is what lights up the brain's reward pathways. Your attention turns inward. You begin to associate doing the work with feeling good, not the recognition that may come later. This creates what psychologists call an intrinsic motivation loop. You no longer need to tell anyone what you're doing because the action itself is enough. You are fueled by motion, not applause. On the flip side, when you share everything you're working on too early, especially when you haven't built momentum, something strange happens. You get a premature dopamine release. Praise for your ambition, likes for your idea, applause for your intentions. But your brain doesn't know the difference. It thinks you've already achieved something. So it relaxes. That spark of motivation dies down. Why? Because your brain already got its reward. This is one of the major dangers of oversharing. It feels productive. It feels validating. But neurologically, it weakens your internal drive. That's why staying silent isn't just about mystery or privacy. It's about protecting the chemical motivation system that drives real achievement. This is why solitude, silence, and self-focus are so important. In silence, the brain enters a reflective state. It becomes more sensitive to genuine progress and more resilient to distraction. Without the noise of comparison or judgment, your dopamine becomes linked to your standards, not someone else's. The reward becomes personal, not performative. And this changes everything. You begin to crave the next step forward, not the next comment, not the next reaction. Your drive becomes clean, clear, and sustainable. You no longer need a crowd to cheer you on because you have trained your brain to cheer for itself. Now let's connect this with long-term goal pursuit. Big goals take time, months, sometimes years. If your brain is wired to only feel good when others approve, you won't last. You'll quit when no one's watching. You'll slow down when the praise stops. But if your dopamine system is wired to respond to your own internal progress, you'll keep going even when it's boring, even when it's hard, even when nobody notices. That's the difference between short-term hype and long-term mastery. The most disciplined people aren't motivated by outcomes. They're motivated by forward motion. They've trained themselves to enjoy the process, the repetitions, the quiet progress. So how do you apply this? You start small. Set micro goals. Celebrate small wins, but only with yourself. Instead of posting your morning workout, feel it. Instead of telling people about your business idea, build it. Instead of sharing your ambition, show up and act on it daily. When you do that, you begin to strengthen your brain's link between effort and reward. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you earn a drop of dopamine. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. Over time, your motivation no longer relies on inspiration or praise. It becomes who you are. Another benefit of this silent self-focus is that it reduces dopamine dependency on unpredictable rewards. Social media, gossip, validation, these things give us erratic dopamine spikes. But what the brain really needs for stable motivation is predictable, earned dopamine, built through routines, practice, and discipline. The more you tie your self-worth to the work itself, the more emotionally stable you become. You're no longer riding the roller coaster of other people's opinions. You're grounded in your own progress. There's also a deep psychological freedom that comes with this. When your motivation is internal, you're no longer performing for the world. You're working for yourself. This unlocks creativity, confidence, and clarity. You no longer need to ask, what will they think? You ask, am I growing? That is a question only you can answer. And that answer becomes your compass. In the end, staying silent is not weakness, it's control. Focus is not isolation, it's intention. And dopamine, when harnessed through discipline and internal progress, becomes your most loyal ally. So if you want to build something meaningful, your career, your body, your mind, don't rush to show the world. Show up for yourself first. Let the brain reward you in silence. Because the most powerful growth is the kind no one sees until it's impossible to ignore. Silence does more than create peace around us. It actively shapes the architecture of our brain and enhances our capacity to learn and grow. When you choose to focus inward and stay silent, you tap into a state that fosters one of the brain's most powerful abilities. Neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. This ability allows us to adapt, to learn new skills, to recover from setbacks, and to improve continuously. What is often overlooked is that silence is a crucial ingredient in this process. The absence of external noise and distractions creates the perfect environment for your brain to rewire itself, making learning more effective and long-lasting. In the noisy world we live in, filled with constant notifications, chatter, and information overload, our brains are bombarded with stimuli that keep us in a reactive state. This state is not conducive to deep learning or meaningful change. Instead, when you embrace silence, you allow your brain to enter a state of rest and reflection. During these quiet moments, your brain shifts from the mode of external engagement to internal processing. This internal processing is where neuroplasticity happens most effectively. It's during silence that your brain reviews new information, integrates it with what you already know, and forms stronger neural pathways. Scientific studies have shown that periods of silence can even stimulate the growth of new brain cells in the hippocampus, the area responsible for memory and learning. This means that staying silent and focusing on yourself is not just a passive state. It actively strengthens the very structures that help you retain knowledge and develop emotional resilience. When you engage in silence regularly, you are essentially giving your brain time to consolidate your experiences, reduce stress, and improve your ability to focus. Stress reduction is another critical aspect tied to silence. Constant noise and stimulation raise cortisol levels, the hormone related to stress, which can damage brain cells and inhibit neuroplasticity. By contrast, silence lowers cortisol and promotes a calm environment in the brain where learning and growth are optimized. This is why many successful people prioritize quiet time, not because it's trendy, but because it scientifically supports their mental performance and emotional well-being. In practical terms, embracing silence means creating intentional moments in your day where you disconnect from the noise and distractions. It might be through meditation, mindful breathing, journaling, or simply sitting quietly without any external input. These practices help your brain to reset and to focus deeply on what truly matters: your goals, your thoughts, your values. By staying silent and focusing inward, you enhance your ability to regulate emotions. This emotional regulation is critical in education and personal growth because it allows you to remain calm under pressure, resist impulsive reactions, and think clearly. When your brain has the opportunity to strengthen neural circuits related to self-control and focus, you are better equipped to tackle challenges without being overwhelmed by anxiety or frustration. Moreover, silence fosters creativity. Many of the greatest ideas and breakthroughs come not from noise and distraction, but from quiet reflection. When you're silent, your brain can connect seemingly unrelated pieces of information, access deeper insights, and generate innovative solutions. This is because silence encourages your mind to wander in productive ways, activating areas involved in imagination and problem solving. The power of silence is also seen in its effect on learning retention. When you study or practice new skills without distraction, your brain encodes information more deeply. This leads to better recall and application later on. Multitasking or engaging with constant external stimuli fragments your attention and reduces the brain's capacity to consolidate learning. Staying silent helps you train your attention span and builds cognitive endurance, essential for mastering complex subjects. Lastly, silence helps build mental resilience. When you face difficulties or setbacks, a silent mind is less reactive and more reflective. It allows you to assess situations calmly and make thoughtful decisions instead of reacting impulsively. This reflective capacity is key to long-term success in any educational or personal pursuit because it helps you learn from mistakes and keep moving forward. In essence, silence is not emptiness. It is fertile ground where your brain grows stronger, smarter, and more adaptable. Choosing to focus on yourself and embrace silence daily means giving your brain the environment it needs to thrive. It's a simple yet profound practice that improves memory, reduces stress, enhances creativity, and builds emotional strength. When you commit to this practice, you don't just learn, you transform. When you cultivate the ability to focus deeply, you are activating the prefrontal cortex, the brain's command center responsible for critical functions like decision-making, self-control, planning, and goal-directed behavior. This region of the brain is what separates deliberate, disciplined action from impulsive reactions. Developing focus is not just about willpower, it's about strengthening the neural networks that govern your ability to stay on task and resist distractions. The more you practice focused attention on yourself and your goals, the stronger and more efficient these brain pathways become. The prefrontal cortex is like a muscle. The more you train it, the better it performs. When you allow yourself to be constantly distracted by social media, notifications, or noise, you weaken this control center. Your brain's ability to filter out irrelevant stimuli diminishes and your decisions become more reactive and less intentional. But when you stay silent and focus on your internal world, you give the prefrontal cortex the chance to engage fully. This engagement leads to enhanced cognitive control, improved emotional regulation, and increased resilience to stress. A key aspect of this focus is the ability to delay gratification. Instead of seeking immediate rewards or validation from others, you train your brain to value long-term benefits. This shift in perspective is crucial for achieving meaningful goals because it requires patience, discipline, and consistent effort. The prefrontal cortex helps you weigh future consequences over present impulses, allowing you to make choices aligned with your values and aspirations. Neuroscientific research shows that this area of the brain also plays a significant role in managing emotions. When you focus inward and maintain silence, you give yourself the space to observe your emotional responses without reacting impulsively. This ability to pause and reflect activates the prefrontal cortex, which in turn regulates the amygdala, the brain's emotional center responsible for fear, anxiety, and stress. By strengthening this connection, you become better equipped to handle challenges calmly and thoughtfully. In addition to improving decision making and emotional regulation, deep focus enhances your capacity for problem solving and creativity. The prefrontal cortex coordinates complex cognitive processes that involve analyzing information, generating ideas, and adapting to new situations. When your mind is calm and centered without the distractions of external noise, these processes function at their highest level. You can think more clearly, identify patterns, and come up with innovative solutions to problems. Moreover, consistent focus on yourself and your goals rewires the brain's reward system. Instead of relying on the unpredictable spikes of dopamine from external sources like social media or social validation, your brain begins to associate dopamine release with internal progress and sustained effort. This internal reward system is more stable and reliable, helping you maintain motivation over time. This is why silent, focused work is often more effective for achieving lasting success than seeking constant approval from others. Building this type of focus also strengthens your working memory, the ability to hold and manipulate information over short periods. Working memory is critical for planning, reasoning, and executing tasks. When you focus silently on your objectives, your working memory is engaged and trained, improving your overall cognitive function. The prefrontal cortex also supports what psychologists call metacognition, or thinking about thinking. This means you develop awareness of your mental processes, allowing you to evaluate your progress, adjust strategies, and make conscious improvements. Silent focus cultivates this metacognitive ability because it reduces distractions and enhances self-awareness. It's important to recognize that developing this deep focus takes practice and intentional effort. It often means creating boundaries with the outside world, limiting distractions, setting aside dedicated time for reflection, and learning to tolerate moments of quiet discomfort. However, the payoff is immense. By nurturing the prefrontal cortex through focused silence, you gain greater control over your life, improve your ability to achieve goals, and enhance your overall mental and emotional well-being. In a culture obsessed with constant communication and instant gratification, choosing silence and self-focus can feel counterintuitive. Yet, it is precisely this counterintuitive practice that rewires your brain for success. It transforms you from a reactive participant in your environment to a deliberate creator of your future. By strengthening the prefrontal cortex, you are not just improving your brain's function, you are sculpting the foundation for a disciplined, purposeful, and fulfilling life. In today's hyper-connected world, the constant barrage of information, noise, and external stimuli creates a persistent state of stress within our bodies and minds. This stress triggers the release of cortisol, commonly known as the stress hormone. While cortisol is essential for short-term survival and focus during emergencies, chronically elevated cortisol levels are detrimental to both brain function and overall health. When you engage with constant distractions, gossip, social media, and the pressures of external validation, your brain remains in a heightened state of alertness, flooding your system with cortisol. This prolonged stress response interferes with your ability to concentrate, impairs memory formation, and disrupts sleep, all of which are essential for optimal brain performance and well-being. One of the most profound reasons to focus on yourself and stay silent is to reduce this chronic stress and protect your brain from the harmful effects of cortisol. When you choose silence over noise, you allow your nervous system to calm down. This calm state lowers cortisol levels, reducing inflammation and promoting recovery within the brain. The brain functions best in a balanced state where stress hormones are regulated, not too high, not too low. Chronic cortisol elevation damages neurons, particularly in the hippocampus, the region responsible for learning and memory. This damage compromises your ability to absorb new information, solve problems, and adapt to challenges. Beyond its biological impact, cortisol influences emotional health. High cortisol correlates with anxiety, depression, and impaired emotional regulation. When you're caught in a cycle of external noise and validation seeking, you're more vulnerable to mood swings and emotional exhaustion. Conversely, by embracing silence and focusing on yourself, you create a refuge where your brain can reset. This sanctuary promotes emotional balance and resilience, enabling you to face stressors without becoming overwhelmed. In addition, the reduction of cortisol through silence enhances your ability to sleep deeply. Sleep is critical for cognitive function, memory consolidation, and emotional health. When cortisol is elevated, it disrupts the natural sleep cycle, preventing restorative rest. A quiet, silent environment before sleep signals to your brain that it's safe to relax, helping you fall asleep faster and experience deeper stages of restorative sleep. This restorative sleep is the foundation for a productive day, allowing your brain to function at its best. Another important aspect is how silence strengthens the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for rest and digest functions. Constant noise and stimulation activate the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, which is useful in emergencies but harmful if persistently triggered. Silence promotes parasympathetic activation, encouraging healing, digestion, and mental clarity. This shift allows your brain to switch from reactive survival mode to proactive growth mode. By choosing to focus silently on your goals and growth, you reduce the cortisol spikes caused by external distractions and social pressures. This reduction preserves your cognitive resources and emotional energy for what truly matters: sustained effort toward your personal development. When your brain is free from excessive cortisol, you experience improved concentration, better problem-solving skills, and heightened creativity. Furthermore, silence can amplify your awareness of internal cues, your thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations. This heightened interoception, internal awareness, is linked to improved self-regulation and decision-making. By tuning into yourself in quiet moments, you build a stronger connection between your mind and body. This connection allows you to notice when stress is rising and take steps to calm yourself before cortisol levels spiral out of control. Choosing silence is not about isolation, but about creating a healthy boundary between you and the external stressors that erode your mental health. It's about giving your brain permission to rest, recover, and build resilience. The quieter you become, the more you nurture an environment where cortisol is balanced, focus is sharpened, and emotional health flourishes. Ultimately, protecting your brain from cortisol's harmful effects through silence and self-focus is a profound act of self-care. It equips you with the clarity, energy, and emotional stability necessary to pursue your goals with sustained passion and effectiveness. In a world full of noise and distractions, choosing silence is one of the most powerful ways to preserve your mental health and unlock your full potential. When you practice focusing on yourself and embracing silence, you are essentially mastering the art of controlling your attention, which is one of the most valuable skills in today's distracted world. Attention is the gateway to all higher cognitive functions. Learning, memory, creativity, and emotional regulation all depend on where and how you direct your focus. The ability to focus silently on your own progress means you are harnessing your brain's attentional resources deliberately and efficiently instead of letting them be scattered by external noise and interruptions. Your brain has a limited capacity for attention, often described as a spotlight that can only illuminate a small area at a time. When you constantly switch that spotlight between multiple tasks, distractions, or external stimuli, your brain pays a cognitive cost. This cost manifests as reduced efficiency, increased errors, and mental fatigue. Every time you shift your attention away from your internal goals to seek external approval or engage in idle chatter, you weaken your ability to maintain sustained focus. The brain has to reload each time it shifts, losing valuable time and energy. By staying silent and focused on yourself, you minimize these costly attention shifts and conserve mental energy. This practice also helps develop what psychologists call executive attention, which is the brain's ability to prioritize relevant information and suppress distractions. Executive attention is governed primarily by the prefrontal cortex, which strengthens through deliberate focus. When you learn to focus silently on your own work or growth, you build this executive attention muscle. Over time, this improves your capacity to stay on track, resist temptations, and complete complex tasks, even in the face of distractions. Another important factor is that silent self-focus helps you regulate your emotional reactions to setbacks and challenges. Often, distractions and social validation seeking serve as emotional crutches, temporarily alleviating discomfort, but ultimately preventing you from developing resilience. When you embrace silence and focus inward, you confront your feelings head on. This confrontation fosters emotional intelligence, teaching you to recognize and manage your emotions rather than avoiding them. Emotional intelligence is closely linked to attention control because being aware of your emotional state allows you to adjust your focus and behavior accordingly. By strengthening your attention through silence and self-focus, you also improve your working memory, the mental workspace where you hold and manipulate information. Working memory is essential for reasoning, problem solving, and learning new concepts. A well-trained working memory enables you to juggle complex ideas, plan steps ahead, and adapt flexibly to changing situations. When your attention is fragmented by external noise or social demands, your working memory becomes overloaded and less effective. Silent focus creates the ideal conditions for your working memory to operate optimally. This enhanced attentional control also leads to deeper absorption in your activities, a state often described as flow. Flow is characterized by complete immersion, effortless focus, and a loss of self-consciousness. It is the mental state where people perform at their highest levels and experience the most satisfaction. By turning your attention inward and minimizing distractions through silence, you create fertile ground for flow to emerge regularly. This state not only boosts productivity, but also reinforces your motivation, as the intrinsic reward of flow becomes a powerful driver to keep pushing forward. Furthermore, focusing silently on yourself cultivates self-discipline, a trait closely tied to attention control. Self-discipline is the ability to persist in your efforts despite discomfort, boredom, or temptation. It is the backbone of all meaningful progress. When you commit to silence and self-focus, you practice saying no to external distractions and yes to your internal goals. This repeated practice strengthens neural pathways associated with self-control, making it easier over time to resist impulses and maintain consistent effort. It's important to note that developing this level of attentional control requires intentional practice and patience. The modern environment is designed to hijack your attention with constant alerts, social media updates, and endless information. The first step is creating intentional, quiet zones in your day, times when you disconnect from external inputs and turn your attention fully inward. This could be through meditation, focused work sessions, or simply sitting quietly and reflecting. Over time, these practices build your attention span and resilience to distraction. By mastering your attention through silent self-focus, you not only improve your ability to learn and grow, but also enhance your mental well-being. Scattered attention often leads to stress, anxiety, and a sense of overwhelm. Conversely, focused attention brings clarity, calmness, and a sense of control. When you know where your attention is going and why, you feel empowered rather than at the mercy of external chaos. In sum, the ability to focus silently on yourself is a transformative skill. It strengthens your brain's attentional networks, enhances emotional regulation, boosts working memory, and fosters flow and self-discipline. In a world full of distractions and noise, choosing silence and self-focus is a radical act of reclaiming your mental power and directing it toward your most meaningful goals. This skill not only elevates your performance, but also nurtures your sense of purpose and fulfillment. The journey of personal growth and self-mastery is often misunderstood as something loud and outward, full of grand gestures, constant communication, and visible achievements. Yet, the deepest transformations happen quietly within. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you engage in a process that rewires your brain toward wisdom, resilience, and purposeful action. This internal quiet cultivates a level of mental clarity and emotional strength that cannot be attained through noise or external validation. Silence serves as a mirror reflecting your true self without distortion. In a world filled with opinions, judgments, and distractions, it's easy to lose sight of your authentic values, goals, and potential. When you deliberately step into silence, you create a safe space to observe your thoughts and feelings without reacting to them immediately. This observation develops mindfulness, a state of present moment awareness that grounds you in reality and frees you from the pull of past regrets or future anxieties. Mindfulness in silence is not passive, it is an active engagement with your inner world, allowing you to discern what truly matters and what is noise. This clarity gained through silence leads to better decision-making. Without the clutter of external opinions or internal distractions, your mind becomes a calm lake reflecting the truth clearly. In this calm state, intuition, the brain's ability to synthesize complex information subconsciously, can emerge more strongly. Intuition is often dismissed as vague or mystical, but neuroscience shows it arises from the brain's pattern recognition, which becomes sharper when you reduce mental noise. By focusing silently on yourself, you sharpen this intuitive insight, enabling you to make wiser choices aligned with your deepest values and goals. Moreover, silence cultivates patience, a virtue essential for any meaningful endeavor. The noise of the outside world often pushes us toward instant gratification, quick judgments, and rushed actions. This rush can lead to mistakes, frustration, and burnout. Silence, on the other hand, teaches you to wait, to listen to the subtle signals within, and to trust the process of growth. Patience cultivated in silence allows you to stay committed to long-term goals even when immediate results are not visible. This endurance is what separates fleeting effort from lasting success. In addition, staying silent and focused on yourself enhances your capacity for empathy and compassion. By turning inward, you become more attuned to your own emotional landscape, recognizing pain, joy, fears, and hopes. This self-awareness naturally extends outward as you become more understanding of others' experiences. The silence that fosters self-connection also builds bridges of connection with others because empathy requires an ability to listen deeply, both to yourself and to those around you. In a noisy world, silence is the foundation for genuine human connection. The practice of silent focus also strengthens your resilience to adversity. When you cultivate inner stillness, you develop an emotional core that remains steady despite external chaos. Challenges and setbacks become less overwhelming because you have trained your mind to remain centered and composed. This resilience is not about ignoring difficulties, but about approaching them with a calm, clear mind that can adapt and problem solve effectively. It is the quiet strength that carries you through tough times and empowers you to bounce back stronger. Furthermore, silence nurtures a profound sense of self-trust. In moments of distraction or external influence, it's easy to doubt your judgment or lose confidence. But through silent reflection, you develop a deeper understanding of your own values, capabilities, and boundaries. This self-knowledge forms the bedrock of confidence and autonomy. You no longer need constant reassurance from others because you have learned to rely on your own inner guidance. Ultimately, focusing on yourself and staying silent is an investment in your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. It is the soil in which all personal growth is rooted. The habits you form in these quiet moments, mindfulness, patience, clarity, resilience, empathy, and self-trust, become the qualities that shape your life. They allow you to navigate the complexities of the modern world with grace, purpose, and authenticity. In a culture that often equates noise with productivity and connection, choosing silence may seem countercultural. Yet, it is precisely this choice that empowers you to rise above distraction, cultivate deep inner peace, and live a life aligned with your highest potential. By embracing silence and focusing inward, you create the conditions for a transformative journey that leads not just to success, but to profound fulfillment and lasting wisdom.